like to welcome Carolyn Walskog with the Transformative Justice Law Project to the virtual Deerfield Library. TJLP of Illinois provides support, advocacy, and free holistic legal services to transgender people in Illinois, valuing gender, self-determination, and transformative justice. This program is being recorded and will be up on the Deerfield Public Library's YouTube channel for indefinitely, actually, starting likely tomorrow. If you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat at any time, and we will get to those probably at the end of the program, unless they're timely. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so welcome. Thank you, Carolyn, for joining us tonight. Very excited.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining tonight or watching later. As was mentioned, my name is Carolyn. I use she or they pronouns, and I've been working with TJLP on and off for about 9 years, helping people to file for their legal name change. I am a social worker, and our name change clinic is a law project that's really geared towards helping trans people and their families navigate systems that were traditionally set up to not think about the needs of trans people when it comes to the court process. So we're trying to demystify that tonight. So I will share my screen, and all of these slides will be available to anyone who registered through the library, or you can follow up with us afterward for more information. So again, this is who we are, Transformative Justice Law Project. We're going to be talking about name changes and gender marker changes. So as an organization, we're deeply committed to the universal rights of gender self-determination, a long-term goal of abolishing the prison industrial complex, and to transformative justice models as necessary alternatives to the criminal punishment system. And when we think about gender self-determination, that means being able to change your name, change your gender marker, have identity documents that reflect who you are, and picking the name that feels best to you. So our organization, TJLP, started really back in the early late 2010, or I don't know, late 2000s, I guess you'd say, and with some folks coming together saying, hey, like the legal system is just not accessible to queer and trans people. And so at the time, our founders were having a lot of questions from trans people. Help me change my name. How do I do this process? It's really confusing. And so they were running back and forth to the Daly Center downtown, helping Cook County residents to file their name changes. And finally, we're like, this model is not sustainable. Let's create a clinic. So they just kind of started showing up on the last Friday of the month to the Daly Center downtown, and started getting volunteers and other people just to show up and help people fill out their paperwork to get a legal name change. And that model worked for us for a really long time. So we were always at the Daly Center on the last Friday of the month from 9 to 3. And whoever showed up, we helped them and helped them file their paperwork. And I got involved probably around like 2014 because I was working out in DuPage at the time, and found that the navigating the name change process was really confusing for the residents of the housing program that I was working at in DuPage. And so I learned about TJLP's model and kind of got involved ever since then. So we continued with our mobilization until COVID happened, when everything shut down and we could no longer meet in person. And we transitioned our model to a virtual model, and now we kind of have brought back some of the in-person clinics, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We've helped trans people change about over 2,000, maybe close to 3,000 at this point, trans and non-binary people in Illinois to file for their legal name change. And now we can help anybody throughout the entire state of Illinois. So in this presentation, I'll give you some Lake County specific name change information, but if you are watching from another county, if you have any specific questions, feel free to let me know. All right. So I am Carolyn again. I'm one of the co-coordinators of the clinic. We also have two other members of our team, Avi Rednick, who co-coordinates the clinic with me. He's also our staff attorney. We have Alexis Martinez, who is our court support coordinator. So for Cook County residents, she goes to every single hearing on Zoom with people. And then we have a huge fabulous volunteer team that's made up of law students, former people who've changed their name, parents of trans people, and lots of other people who have been through the process themselves and want to give back. So what I always tell people is we're here to help and our services are free. So everything that I'm about to share about what TJLP offers, we do not charge anybody for any of the work that we do to help you navigate this court process system. Sometimes there, depending on your income, there's fees that the county will charge you, but let us help you. This system can be purposely confusing. And so we're happy to, help folks navigate this process. And we have an intake form on our website at tjlp.org. And I'll share that link in a little bit. So getting into the name change process. So when you want to change your name in Illinois, we have a name change law or a statute that says how our names have to be changed. So every single state has a different law about how their name changes go. I've helped somebody living in Washington, D.C., their name changes are only $60. So we have a law that says this is what makes you eligible to change your name. So up on the screen, you'll see a couple of those things. If you are under 18, you have to have a parent or guardian file your name change on your behalf. Once you turn 18, you're eligible to file for a name change on your own. You have to live in Illinois for at least 6 months before you can get your name changed in our state. That's part of our statute. So if you just moved here from Wisconsin last week, and right now we're in May, you would really need to wait till November to file. You don't have to be a US citizen to change your name, but you have to be a resident. So you have to be living in Illinois. And so sometimes we can document that through a lease or a phone bill or like your first credit card bill from when you moved here. You have to file in the county where you live. So if you live in Lake County, you have to go through the Lake County Circuit Clerk to file for your name change. If you live in Cook County, you file in Cook County and DuPage, etc. Currently, we have a 10-year ban for anyone who has a felony conviction. So that means if you've ever had a felony, even if you were adjudicated as a minor, you have to wait till 10 years till after your felony and your sentencing was completed. So it's not 10 years from when you were arrested, but if you say serve jail time or on parole, whenever that ended, your clock starts and you have 10 years from that date before you can file for a name change. Now I'll share later that we've been working really hard and we got changes made to that law that go into effect January 1st. But as of right now, if you've had a felony in Illinois or any other state, you have a 10-year waiting period to file. And some people have a lifetime ban, meaning they're never allowed to change their names in Illinois, according to our current statute. And so those are people who have identity theft convictions or convictions that require them to comply with the sex offender or arson registry. And again, we've had some changes, so there will be a pathway for folks to be able to change your name. But again, that doesn't take in effect till January. And this is a pretty strict statute compared to other states versus like in New York, if you're incarcerated, you can change your name while you're incarcerated. And that is just not how our state law looks. All right, so adults versus minor name changes. So when I share this process for changing your name, there's different paperwork that adults use and minors use. So I'll go over a couple of the things to note about minors. And if anybody's here interested about minor name changes, I'm happy to answer those specific questions. But basically, when you're a minor, a parent or guardian has to file on your own behalf. If you are in the care of DCFS, so DCFS is your guardian, you'd have to go through the office of the guardian to get approval. But if you're a minor and both of your parents are married and they agree to the name change, typically that's when the paperwork's the easiest. In our state, if you have a parent that's listed on the birth certificate, or even if they're not, but their parental rights have not been terminated, they have to be notified of the name change. So even if the other parent has not been in your life, if they never had their parental rights terminated, there's a way that we either have to send notice of the hearing to their last known address or publish about the name change in the newspaper. And so adults will look a little bit different as we dive into the paperwork. All right, so, and let me get my chat open. I've lost my chat screen for a second. I'm going to put a couple links into the chat as we go. So the first is just the TJLP web. See to everyone. This is the TJLP website if you want to check it out. And then I'm going to put the links now to the different state paperwork and take you over to that site. All right, so Illinois now has what they call approved forms. So it used to be that all counties made their own forms that you use to fill out paperwork, and Illinois has state approved forms. So if you're ever trying to find these, you can just Google, like Illinois name change paperwork, and this is what comes up. So are the approved statewide forms for name change. There's an adult section, and there's a section for the paperwork for minors. And you'll see there's a lot of different links to paperwork. Not all paperwork applies to every situation, but these are some of them. And so you can click here, getting started with a request for name change. And this is a guidance document about how to file a name change. So you're here, you're listening to this training, but if you wanted to follow back up, you can read some of these guidance documents. What can be challenging is that we have 102 counties in Illinois. And so there's like 102 ways that people do name changes. Every county is like a little unique and will have different things that they're looking for. But for the most part, these instructions will help you. So you can check out getting started, how to change your name for an adult. There's paperwork here that you can check out and read through that has like special information. And then you can find the first form that you typically use, which is called a request for name change form. So I'm going to get into like how this works in a minute, but just to show you that you file this paperwork, what county you live in, you put your current name. So if your name is Barbie Marie Smith Jr., you would have to put that full name, how it's listed on your birth certificate. So you would want to spell the junior as a JR period, the whole spelling of junior. And you're saying, I asked the court to enter orders to change my name. So you have your old name, that or your legal name, and what you want your name to be changed to. And then you have to answer questions around your eligibility, right? So how long you've lived in Illinois, what your birth date is, what your place of birth is. And then you have to answer questions related to having any felony convictions. Then if you do have any of those, if you have to be placed on probation for a crime which requires you to register as a sex offender, for identity theft or other felonies, those have to be listed here. So if you're answering yes to these questions, you really should probably be consulting an attorney before you submit any filings. Then you sign your current name and put your information. You can list your email address, and then you'd have a witness. So you can have a friend sign this form certifying that what you said above is true. So there's more paperwork that we'll get to, but I just want to show you that's kind of typically what the initial request for name change looks like. And for kids, for minors, it looks a little bit different. There's also paperwork related to, if I get back into here, to applying for a fee waiver. So you can click that second link in the chat, and we'll talk about who qualifies for a fee waiver in a moment. All right. So when you've filled out your forms, you're figuring out what you need. For the most part, when you're initially filing for a name change, that request form that we just looked at, that's what gets filled out. So there's, for minors, it looks a little bit different. It says request for minor, but either one, that's where you're typically going to start with. And then you're going to go onto this website, which is called the Odyssey e-file. And this is where your paperwork will get submitted through. Now, Odyssey e-file is like the state's platform. It's an electronic filing platform. You can also go to the courthouse and work with the clerks to have them help you upload this, but you can do this from home. And I've linked, and actually I'll put the link to Odyssey into the chat. All right, so with Odyssey e-file, this is, again, you'll create an account, and you use this to upload your forms and file for a name change. And then through that gets sent to the courts, and the courts process that and assign you a case number, and you get to start moving along. So basically you complete your request form and file that electronically through Odyssey e-file. And then the clerks will assign you a case number. Once you get an email saying that your filing was accepted, you can call the court and figure out when your court date will be. So the way our statute is written is that when you file for a name change, most adults are required to also publish their name change in a newspaper that is circulated in your county. So you'll see down here, there's 3 approved newspapers that I could find in Lake County that you can publish in, either the Lake County Daily Herald, the Lake County Journal, or the Lake County News Sun. And so I also have a link for that I'll put in the chat. So when we file a request for name change, this is like where that old statute comes into play, where this was a law that was created without trans people in mind. That before the internet, we used to have to publish, or we still do though, that this was created, you have to publish your name change in a newspaper, and it has to run for 3 consecutive weeks. So like Wednesday, Wednesday, Wednesday. And then you can't have your hearing for your name change until 6 weeks after that first filing in the newspaper. So typically from when you file your name change to when you have your hearing, it's usually no shorter than 8 weeks, because you have to have time to talk to the newspaper, get that published. And then after it's published, you'll get a certificate of publication that has to be e-filed into your court file or brought with you to court to show the judge that you met that requirement. Now, we feel that publication is super invasive, but we were not able to remove that entirely from the law. There is a way to apply for a publication waiver, and that really depends on the judge that you are working with. So currently, until 2024, if you want to request a waiver of publication, there's a form linked in the approved forms guide, that link that I shared, and you have to write a narrative explaining why you want your publication waived. Judges, again, it's at their discretion of whether or not they'll grant that. So I've had luck in some counties, other counties, no. Part of the changes in the law that are happening starting next year is that there's going to be a carve out in the law for trans people who believe that they might be subject to discrimination, to be able to waive their publication without having to provide any evidence. So we're hopeful that that will provide more of a pathway. But for now, most people do have to publish in the newspaper. So you complete your name change paperwork, you file it through Odyssey e-file. The clerks give you a case number, and then you call and schedule your court date. So we're at the beginning of May of 2023 right now. So your hearing would probably be around the first week of July or sometimes after that. And then you fill that out on the form that's called the publication notice that is in the approved forms list. That then gets e-filed into your case, and they'll file stamp that. And then you call up one of these newspapers as listed, and you pay for publication, which is usually around $90, and they will get that going. Now, to back up a little bit, when you're filing for a name change, depending on what county you live in, counties charge a different amount of money for for the filing fee. So in Lake County, to file for a name change, it costs $334. Compared to Cook County, which is $388. I've seen it, as low as like $290 the further south you go. So it really is dependent on your county and how much they charge. They also charge a credit card processing fee. So I'd anticipate if you were paying for this via credit card, it'd be probably around $345 that you would need to have at the time of filing. There are ways to apply for a fee waiver, and the forms are listed in the where I linked, where you, depending on your income level, you can qualify to have your fees waived to participate in the court hearing. So for people who have food stamps, other public benefits like SSI or TANF, you can automatically qualify for a fee waiver, but you still have to fill out the paperwork. Other people, if you're making less than 125% of the federal poverty line or up to 200%, you can have either all or partial fees waived. And so that is extra process. So I'm sharing all of this, but you don't have to do this alone. TJLP can help you, or if you want to work with other folks, we have some other recommendations of places that you can work with. So just know that if you think, oh my gosh, this is way too expensive, I'll never be able to afford it, there are other ways to have access to get the fees waived. All right, so we filed our name change. We got our court date. We sent it to the newspaper, kind of get to hang out for a little bit. We've got a few weeks until that hearing. Let's see. So again, yeah, court dates are typically 8 to 12 weeks, and they, for Lake County, they're either on Zoom or in person. You can choose which one you go to. I think now, given where we are, a couple years after the pandemic, it seems like sometimes attending in person can help you move the process along a little bit faster, but it's up to you whether or not you go in person or on Zoom. If you go on Zoom, there's the Lake County Courthouse has information about how to find that Zoom information, or you go to the courthouse and go to the courtroom that you were assigned. And if you've never been to court before, when it's on your day, court's typically at 9 a.m., I think, for Lake County, and you'll have a case number. So it'll be like 23 MR and have a number next to it. And so you'll check in either with the clerk, or you just kind of sit down when you get to the courtroom and they start calling cases up. When it gets to your turn, they'll have you come up before the judge. The judge looks over your paperwork and makes sure that you've lived in Illinois for long enough, you haven't had a felony, and then they'll grant your name change and issue you what's called a name change order. And from there, you'll get those copies certified at the clerk's office. Now, I've heard in Lake County sometimes those orders are not available for 24 hours. So sometimes you have to come back the next day and get those copies. And I usually recommend getting like 4 to 5 at least certified copies, because you'll bring those copies with you to the DMV, to the Social Security office, to the passport office, to a passport appointment. We mail everything to Springfield to correct Illinois birth certificates. So, et cetera, et cetera. The thing about getting your name changed is having the court issue you a name change order, nothing automatically changes. You have to go and tell all of these systems that you changed your name. So if you're sitting there waiting for your new Social Security card with your new name to show up, that's not going to happen. You have to go to the Social Security office, fill out an application and say, guess what? I changed my name. I need a new card, and show them this proof. All right. So that was like a quick overview. We can go into the paperwork a little bit, but let's talk about gender marker. So Illinois, the only process that you have to actually do before a judge is to change your name. If you want to change your gender marker on your documents, you can do that, but you don't have to have a court order of gender change from the state of Illinois, which is a good thing. We don't want that. But at the same time, it can pose a little bit of a problem for people who have birth certificates from other states that require a court order of gender change, because Illinois judges just can't issue that. So when you go about updating your gender marker on your various documents, within Social Security, on your ID, you have to bring whatever's required by each of those systems for what they ask for gender marker. So let's see, I don't have a slide about that. For example, in on an Illinois driver's license or state ID, currently in 2023, you can either have male or female or an M or an F on your ID. Starting in 2024, and we're not sure if it'll be January 1st or when in 2024, you'll also be able to have an X, so like a non-binary gender marker on your ID. And our Illinois IDs are easy to update. You just have to fill out this form called gender self-designation. And that form, and you show them that and they'll change your gender marker for you. Within Social Security, they no longer require doctor's letters. So we used to have to bring a letter on letterhead from your doctor that says, so-and-so is my patient. They are female. Please change their gender marker to female within your system. Now you just have to verbally tell the Social Security administration staff that you want to change your gender marker, and they should let you do that. Although there's a learning curve because that just switched over. And then for our Illinois birth certificates, until June 30th, right now, you have to present a letter, this form from your doctor or a therapist saying that you're trans or intersex and to change your gender marker. And that is changing starting July 1st, but we don't know what that paperwork will look like yet. So long story short, you can update your gender marker on your various documents, and you just have to go to each of those systems. You don't have to change your gender marker. It's a very individual process for each person to decide if that makes sense to them, but you can do that. It happens a lot for us that there are people who live in Illinois, but they were born in other states. And so you can, change your Illinois ID, you go to any Social Security office really throughout the country. But if you want to update your birth certificate, you have to look at the laws of what that state has in order to figure out what they require. So some states your name change order will allow you to change your name on your birth certificate in any of the states that you were born in. But some states require surgery in order to change your gender marker. Some require a court order, an affidavit from a physician saying you've had gender surgery, irreversible gender surgery. And so sometimes that's a barrier for people, and they aren't able to have their Illinois their birth certificate from whatever state they're born in match their other IDs. And that's just common with trans people, that you just can't always have all of your documents match. And that's okay. You can still have some of your identification in your affirmed identity. All right, so those are some of the overviews. When I show you, I'm going to show you a couple things and then we can jump back to paperwork or if there's any questions that folks have. But I just want to remind people that TJLP, our services are free and will help you do this process. We really started because we don't want people to be in the courtroom alone. We want you to feel celebrated as you're doing this process and having your the name that you know yourself to be validated through the courts. So let us help you if you are interested, and I'll put our intake form in the chat. So in Cook County now, we have an in-person clinic, usually on the second Fridays of the month at the Puerto Rican Cultural Center at Trans Chicago. So that's on Division Street. And that's really geared towards Cook County residents. Our volunteers are trained for Cook County paperwork. So if you are living anywhere outside of Cook County in Illinois and want help, fill out our intake form, and then I'll reach out to you and set up a time, and we do all the paperwork over the phone and kind of talk you through that process. We do have a little bit of a wait list, so it can take between 4 and 6 weeks to get an appointment. And then our emails below, just namechange@tjlp.org. We can answer any questions. Maybe you're watching and you've already done a name change, but you never updated other documents, or you lost your order of name change. We can help you figure those things out. All right, so some other changes. House Bill 9 was a bill that Illinois passed this year which codifies into our Illinois law that people can have non-binary gender markers on Illinois birth certificates. So during the pandemic, the Office of Vital Records started issuing non-binary gender markers on birth certificates, but we put it into law so that no matter who's in charge, that protection is there. They also removed the requirement that you have to have a doctor or a therapist write a letter proving that you're trans. So there'll be a self-determination process similar to how the DMV works, that you'll be able to verify that you need your gender marker changed. And there's also a fee waiver process now for certain groups. So correcting your birth certificate in Illinois costs $15, but if you are exiting incarceration, fleeing domestic violence, experiencing homelessness, or a couple other categories, I think escaping human trafficking, there's a way to get that $15 waived, which can be a big expense for some people. So that's happening July 1st. So we expect some new paperwork for birth certificate corrections. And then another bill that we worked really hard on is called HB 2542, and this goes into effect January 1st. And so there's a lot of text on the screen, but I'll just read some of that. So it's HB 2542 has removed the 10-year waiting period for people with felony convictions and provided a pathway for people who've had felonies to apply for a name change. And it removes the lifetime ban for people with identity theft convictions. So this law also adds judicial discretion, except for people seeking a name change due to gender-related identity, marriage, religion, or status as human trafficking survivor, to the registration ban period. Sorry, so there's a lot of things on there, but basically judges will have discretion now to help people. Like, so if you have to register as a sex offender or on the arsonist registry, judges will have discretion if they want to help you change your name if you are trans, or if you've been a survivor of human trafficking and some of these other things. So there's a pathway now for people who've had a permanent bar. We also, when in trying to update the law previously, they started doing background checks on every single person who had to file a name change. So even if you were changing the name of your 1-month-old, they would have to have a background check. And so they're improving the efficiency of that. So right now, like what we're telling people is if you've had a felony, do not file your paperwork in 2023. And again, I would talk with an attorney. You could reach out to us or other attorneys before you file, and those filings can start January 1st. All right, and so another great resource that's available, and I'm going to put this information in the chat and show it to you all, is the National Center for Trans Equality has an ID Documents Center. And so if we go over there, this is what this page looks like. So it's just transequality.org/documents. And if you forget everything that we talked about today, you can come here and select this date. So say I was born in Wisconsin and I want to, I got my name changed, but I want to know how to update my birth certificate. You can select the state that you're in and scroll down. So if I'm living in Wisconsin, I have to use these instructions for how to change my name, how to get my ID updated. But say I'm living in Illinois and I just want to correct my birth certificate, then I read this. Wisconsin will issue an amended birth certificate upon receipt of a court order to change the name and the sex of the registrant on the certificate due to surgical change procedure. So basically, if you want to change your gender marker in Wisconsin, you have to have surgery and then have to have a court order saying that you've had your gender changed. So people in Wisconsin may run into some barriers to be able to change that if you can't meet those requirements, but you can at least change your name after a name change on the certificate. So those are some of the things that folks deal with. All right, so that's like a very like high level overview of the name change process. Are there any questions that have come through or anything that I can answer right now?
I don't see any questions that have come in through the chat at this point, but if you guys do have questions, feel free to go ahead and include those in the chat.
Okay, so while we'll wait and see if there's any questions, I'm gonna pop back over and show you a couple of other examples of the name change forms. So for the adults, for a name change, we looked at that request form. And then this is what an order of name change looks like. So this is what the judge actually signs on the day of your hearing. So it'll say your old name, it'll list what newspaper you published in and those dates, or if notice was not required, that'll be listed. And then you'll have your old name and your new name. The judge signs this, and this is what you get like certified. So it's like embossed, and you bring this with you to all those different places to change your name. And then this is what the publication for notice form looks like. So this gets filled out typically around the time you file, and it shares like what your old name is, your new name, where court will be held. And then this is what you turn into the newspaper for them to start processing your name change. This is what the motion to waive publication looks like. And I will say I haven't done a motion to waive publication in Lake County, so I'm not sure how that judge responds to that. But this is what the form looks like. And you could say, I need this waiver because, and you would explain. So we kind of have a standard thing that we use sometimes in Cook County, explaining how trans people are more likely to experience violence and those types of things. And again, it's up to judicial discretion at this point if they want to waive your publication. So sometimes this typically is you have to have another hearing where the judge looks this over and either grants your publication waiver and then might grant your name change that same day, or they might deny it and then send you to go publish. And you have to decide if you want to move forward with the name change. And then there's an order form. So that is like the basic paperwork for an adult name change. Where it gets a little different is when it comes to minors. So these two forms here, request for name change minor children and request for name change child info, is we always need these forms, and the rest of these can depend whether like your specific situation. So we'll look at this one first. So this is called a request for name change minor children. And the way the forms are written, like, so if you're a married couple, just pick one parent to list as the person requesting the name change, and there'll be a spot later for the other parent to sign. And you scroll down, I ask the court to enter orders to enter the name change of the minor children listed below. And so you'll list your child's old name and their new name. If you're changing multiple children's name, you'll list those down there. You'll always check yes for I've attached the request for name change child info. We're going to look at that in a second. And then for here, I've continuously lived in Illinois for at least 6 months. I would put how long your child has lived in Illinois. So if you were born in 1979 and have never left, but your kid was born in 2005, put their birth date if they've always lived here. And then you sign as the parent. And then you again find a witness. So that's the first page. And then this next form is request for name change child information. And so over here, again, it's your name as the parent requesting. You put your child's old name, their birth date, their address, your relationship to the child. So most people check, I'm the parent with custody or parental decision-making responsibility. And then you check to make sure around the child's criminal history that they have not done any of these things. If you answer yes, then they are not eligible for a name change at this point, typically. And then you go down to the next page. It says it's in the best interest of the child that their name be changed because, so I want their name to be changed. The child wants their name changed. And I usually also check the other box, like this is the name that affirms his identity. This is the name that affirms her identity, their identity, whatever pronouns they use. And then you provide information about the other parent. So if you're married to that person, that makes it a little bit easier. Put their information, that they agree, and then that other parent has to sign this part in front of a notary. If you are not sure, you list the other parent and you can write, I don't know. And then in that case, that's going to trigger us to know that we also have to send notice or potentially publish. So for children who have both parents who are agreeing to the name change, there's no publication requirement the way it is for adults. So that's sometimes the benefit of filing for someone as a minor. But if you don't know where that parent is and they still have parental rights, then typically judges are going to require you to publish their name change in the newspaper. So say you have another parent, but they're not really involved, you'll fill out this form here, which is called a notice of court date. And this is where you send notice to that other parent saying you have the right to come to court and object if you want to. This is when it will be. And then you put their information here. And then you send this via certified letter. So you'll get those little like green slips that you mail those in. And then you'll have to provide the tracking information to the judge to show that that was delivered. And that has to be mailed at least 10 business days before the hearing. If it doesn't get delivered or we can't find that other parent, then you typically would have to publish. So we use this form here, the publication notice. And so this would get filled out and use any of the newspapers we mentioned earlier, and then provide a certificate of publication. If you're not sure, again, feel free to talk with us or we can get you connected to some other resources as well. The other forms on here, I don't use too often, but you're welcome to kind of check those out. And then the other forms I want to show you is the Illinois fee waiver form. So these are the forms that are used when you want to participate in a court case and you're low income. And so you see what I just did there. I Google Illinois fee waiver forms. There's instructions about how to ask the judge to participate in a court for free. And this is the application that you fill out. So when you're filing electronically through e-file, if you're applying for a fee waiver, you're going to submit the request for name change, either for the adults or minors, and the application for the fee waiver. Those will get filed in two separate files, but at the same time. And that prevents you from having to enter credit card information. So this is what the application for fee waivers for court fees looks like. And so you put your name there as the petitioner, or if you're the parent on behalf of a child, you'll put that information there. And you say, I believe I cannot afford to pay the court fees. So you put your information there. You provide any information about who lives with you, and then you'll check the boxes for if you receive any of these benefits. So if you receive SNAP, if you receive TANF, check yes, and then you don't have to answer the questions on the pages below. Although if you're listening in Cook County, the Cook County judges, even though if you get one of these, and I would like highlight it, Cook County judges still make you fill out the rest of these, which is annoying. But for the most part, so if you check no, but you're still low income, you would put your information about how much money you received in the past month, in the past year. You list all of your current debts and expenses, list your belongings, and then kind of this is your opportunity here to explain to the judge why you need your fees waived. And then you fill out this information. And then there's also an order associated with this. The judge, after reviewing your fee waiver application, will fill out. Sometimes you have to go before the judge and they'll look over this. Sometimes they do this in their chambers and send this to you. So it's really county specific depending on how your county does that. So you can always call your clerk and say, I'm filing for a fee waiver, that kind of thing. Again, TJLP can help you do this. So you don't have to do it alone, but if you want to, that's the paperwork. All right, so I'll take it back to questions. Is there anything else that's come up or things that I can answer for folks?
I don't see anything at the moment, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much. This seemed like a really intimidating process. So thank you for breaking it down kind of step by step like that. I think that's really helpful. I think we can, let's see. Yeah, no, I think you probably pretty much answered a lot of the questions that people had. So
Awesome. So again, we're available tjlp.org or namechange@tjlp.org. You can email us with questions. And yeah, we're happy to support you along this process.
thank you so much. Thanks for taking your time out of a rainy Monday night. And yeah, so feel free to reach out. You guys can reach out to me too if you have any questions, and I'll put you in touch. And also just a reminder, this program was recorded tonight. It will be up on the Deerfield Library's YouTube channel and will be accessible indefinitely. So that's great. All right. Well,
And the one
thank
thing
you.
I'll say is if you're watching this and it's like 2027 or something like
Yeah.
that, reach out, because there might, the stuff changes all the time. So if after, watching this after a year or two, some things may have been adjusted. So feel free to kind of keep up on some of these sites for any updates that have happened.
Yeah, and hopefully we bring you back at some point and do a little update there too. I'm sure things will change. So,
Awesome.
All right. Well, you guys have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.